Right, so today I wanted to talk a little bit about this article out of the CBC saying it's not just Toronto and Vancouver, Canada's housing bubble has gone national. When people picture, I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's kind of a little bit monotonous, but anyway, record high prices. Canada's housing market is indeed flush with cash at the moment, with the national average selling price hitting an all-time high of $678,000 in February. That's up more than 25% from the same month last year, pre-pandemic. Um, Against all odds, the pandemic seems to have prompted a flurry of buying by Canadians spending more time at home than ever before. Well, there's a perception that the high prices are mostly a problem in big cities like Toronto and Vancouver. Sales are booming just about everywhere, with bully offers becoming the norm. Paul Martin, president of the Rideau St. Lawrence Real Estate Board that covers Perth, where Armstrong lives, says the market just took off. We've seen our property prices jump close to 50% in the area. About a third of the new buyers are from Toronto, he says, but despite the region being about 3 hours from the city, about half are from Ottawa, which is still close, but still up to an hour away. Um, un- Underpinning the frenzy of record low interest rates, which are lower than they've ever been, built on the back of Canada's central bank slashing its lending rate to practically zero despite to stimulate the economy. Um, Economist Mike Moffat, an Ottawa-based, oh, whatever, low mortgage rates are key to what's happening, but they're not the only factor. I mean, obviously, right? Obviously, if it were just cheap lending, markets would be heating up fairly evenly across the country, but they're not. Some smaller towns an hour or more outside the orbit of large urban centers are faring better in real estate than some big cities. Though he lives in Ottawa, Moffat hails from southwestern Ontario and says affordability issues were a problem there even before the pandemic because of supply and demand issues. There, the area's population was increasing largely from new immigrants and foreign students, and now pandemic low interest rates have poured gasoline on these fires. So, again, this is exactly what I've been saying for the longest time, right? This guy's an economist, right? So the guy really should know what he's talking about. This is exactly what I've been saying. Um, Basically, this right here, right? The first problem is that we have a lot of moratoriums on evictions or foreclosures, right? So the supply of what would normally be new houses have gone down, right? Which is obviously going to drive up the demand, which again is just basic economics. When you restrict the supply, the demand's going to go up. Um, Immigration, this is another thing I've said too, that again, if we keep immigration the way we're going, again, things are only going to get worse, right? People think things are bad now. Give it another 5 or 10 years or 20 years. If we keep going the way things are going right now, things are only going to get worse. And again, there's no reason for immigration right now. There's not one argument, right? I mean, there hasn't been even before this, but now there really isn't, right? We have massive unemployment. Life is becoming very, very unaffordable for a lot of people, and yet we're just going to keep making it worse. Um, and the low interest rates as well. Let's see if there's anything else here. Buyers in small towns are finding themselves priced out of their own markets because local salaries can't compete with the buying power of out-of-towners. Um, yeah, I mean that's basically the story of this stuff, right? And here's the worst thing about it. Like a lot of people are saying, okay, well, what's the solution? Well, the problem isn't what's the solution. The problem is how do you sell people on the actual solution? Because selling people on the actual solution is very hard, right? And the solution is very simple, right? It's very simple. For starters, we need to reopen the economy, right? There's absolutely no reason to have lockdowns in place. There hasn't been at any point looking back on it. So that's the first thing we need to do. The next thing we need to do is we need to cut immigration, preferably to zero, until we have very low unemployment. I would say below 4%, preferably 5% at the absolute least. And not only that, those levels of unemployment for at least 2 or 3 years, preferably longer, but at least then, until we have some actual growth, right? Until we get, you know, at least 3%, at least 2 or 3% growth for multiple years, and that's on top of the amount of growth we've lost from the virus, right? Because obviously, any idiot could have an economy that's growing coming out of this whole virus situation. Um, so again, those are some things we. Another thing we need to do is we need to deregulate. If you look at the most regulated housing markets in Canada, well, where is it? It's the big cities, specifically Toronto and Vancouver. Right? This is the reason why Bay Area real estate is so expensive in the States, is that getting a building permit is next to impossible in a lot of these areas. Like there's places in the Bay Area to where a building permit hasn't been issued in the 21st century. Right? So those are the solutions, right? If we did those things, the housing market would be golden. I mean, you'd have to give it probably 5, 10 years, maybe even a little longer, to be honest, but it would come back. It would be affordable. Um, but no one wants to do that, right? No one wants to do that because, oh, you can't cut immigration. That's racist, right? Um, you can't cut regulations either. Well, again, like the problem's only going to get worse, right? The problem's only going to get worse. So, and this is the thing people really need to understand these days is that you really can't care for people more than they care about themselves. So, for anyone who's struggling out there right now but supports this stuff, again, they deserve every negative ramification that comes their way, right? Anyone who supports lockdowns and loses their job, well, you get what you deserve. You become homeless because yeah, you get what you deserve, right? Again, like I've had enough of trying to care for people more than they care about themselves. The data is very clear on this stuff, and it's not like there's a shortage of people telling. I mean, they're not really usually in the mainstream, but it's not like they're hard to find, right? the there is no perfect solution. Do people? Oh, that's some the stupid straw man argument people like to make. Oh, you think you have a perfect solution? No, I don't have a perfect solution, but it's definitely better than what we're doing right now, and it's better because of basic common sense and basic economics, right? The places where the housing supply is the most restricted is in places like Toronto and Vancouver. Oh, wouldn't you know? Toronto and Vancouver are the most unaffordable places to live in Canada, right? So like again, like the data on this stuff is so clear it's not even funny, but yet people still want to do more of the same. They want more regulation, they want more rent control, right? Only going to make the problem worse, right? It's only, and this is something that again, I don't even know why we have to go over this stuff. This is something that every single, not only economist, but anyone who has the most basic understanding of economics knows that when you impose rent control, when you impose endless regulations, you're going to drive the cost of housing up. And people say, oh no, the rent control, it caps them. No, it doesn't. Maybe for that stuff. But again, like for anyone who doesn't understand this stuff, what happens when so again the government wants to impose rent control, right? The cost of housing is it's going too high. So what do? They impose rent control under this idea that it's going to make life more affordable. Well, what does rent control do? Well, it just means that no one would want to build a new apartment building or no one wants to build new housing because they know they're not going to be able to make any money off of it, right? Which in the long run, all that does is just restricts the supply of housing, which just makes the price go up. This is stuff that 5-year-olds could figure out. I don't get why there's adult human beings who don't understand this stuff. Now people would say, oh, the government can build the housing. Okay, so then you're saying that we should take um, $10 million, or let's say about a more realistic amount, $100 million taxpayer dollars, and build an apartment building, knowing that the government's only going to recoup 70, 80 million of that, if that. Right? So you're basically saying, yeah, we should take 20 or $30 million of taxpayer money and just piss it away. Like, that's how stupid the average person is these days. Right? If we simply allowed the market to operate, the price would come down, right? For just basic reasons that um, new housing would be allowed to be built that wouldn't cost an arm and a leg in Toronto and Vancouver, right? The market, people would stop paying these prices, and this is another reason too why now that I think of it, part of the other big reason why the cost of housing is going up a lot lately too is that if you look at the price of lumber, it's gone up a ton over the whole pandemic situation. I've seen numbers that it costs upwards of like 20 or $30,000 to build the average house these days, right? So that's another big problem. Like, that's something that we should be dealing with. How do we bring those costs back down? But no one's interested in that. Everyone's only interested in, oh, how do we tax people more? How do we have more regulations? Like, it's just the madness never ends, right? The madness just never ends, right? And it's like I always bring up, the biggest problem in society, it's not what is the solution. People say, oh, what's your solution? It doesn't matter what my solution is, right? The solutions, the steps in the right direction are very clear. We know what the steps in the right direction look like. The problem is that you can never sell the average person on it because they're so brainwashed, it's not even funny. Right? They're so brainwashed, it's not even funny. And people say, oh no, the free market will lead to, price gouging. No, it won't. Right? Go back to the 1950s, right? 1950s, 1960s. You could buy a house for like a couple years' salary, like just a middle class house. The average cost of a house in Canada, what was it, 600 and some $1,000? Is the average salary in Canada $300,000? No, it's like 50 or 60, right? So again, the exact opposite is true. It's very clear the free market will make things more affordable. Why do people not want the free market? It's very simple. It doesn't benefit them. Right? I just wish people would be honest about this stuff. This is why I can't stand these people. Right? Because if they said, no, I don't want a free market because that means less resources for me, well, at least they're honest about it. If they were honest, they would say, oh no, I want socialism and more regulations because I want to take from other people and have money for myself that I didn't earn. Like, if they said that, I would actually probably respect those people because at least they're being honest. But this whole, oh, we need endless regulations and endless taxes to help the poor. Well, has it helped the poor? Is stuff more affordable now, or is it more affordable 50 years ago? It not only is it more affordable 50 years ago, it's not even close. Like, it's not even in the same ballpark. But again, what does the average person say when you bring that up? They laugh at you, right? Their solution's literally just more of the same, right? It's literally, again, like the unofficial definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result, right? So, like I said, that things are only going to get worse. Like, things are going to get worse before they get better. And this is the other thing too, that the Canadian economy was not in very good shape going into the pandemic. Right? This is another one of the endless reasons why the people who support lockdowns are insane, is that they think you can just flip a good economy on and off like a light switch. It's not how it works. Canada was already within millimeters of being in a recession even before the pandemic. I mean, we had consecutive quarters of, I think it was 0.3 and 0.1% growth. We were within millimeters of a recession prior to the pandemic. People don't seem to realize, and I've been saying it for pretty much a year now, that we're going to recover out of this whole situation into a recession. 7, 8% unemployment. I mean, real unemployment. I mean, the actual number they'll say it'll be like 6 or 7, but um, high unemployment is going to be a normal thing in Canada going forward, right? And again, like I say, people's solution is just going to be more of the same. And it's, oh, we need more socialism, more money printing, which is only going to make life even more unaffordable. And it, again, money printing really only benefits the rich, right? So yeah, I don't really know what to tell people. I mean, the solution, well, again, like I say, no perfect solution, but the steps in the right direction are very clear and very obvious, but no one wants to go for them. So anyway, that's what I wanted to bring up today. Like, I could probably go on forever about this stuff, but I'm going to leave it there. If you liked the video, make sure you hit that like and subscribe. If you haven't already, make sure you check out those links below. Follow me on those other platforms if you haven't already. If you want to donate, you can do that as well. Again, I would very much appreciate whatever support I can get, but at the very least, just hit that like and subscribe and stay tuned for more.